Good morning. Welcome to Grace Church on the Hill. So glad that you can join us, and I'm joined today by our organist, Tom Fitches. Wonderful to have a chance to chat, outside of just normal Sunday worship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good to be here and good to chat with you.
Yeah. Well, Tom, I'm sure many people know, but you're a longtime musician in the diocese. Recently you were awarded the Order of the Diocese of Toronto, is that right?
That's right, in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, I was one of about 40 people that in the same year that Colin Johnson bestowed upon me the Order of the Diocese of Toronto, and very appreciative of that.
Yeah, many years of service. I imagine that you've seen Anglican music change over that time in the diocese. I'm just wondering maybe if you have any reflections on that change or your sense of where things are today, even in this odd, constrained time.
Okay. Certainly there have been changes in music and liturgy throughout the time that I've served in different parishes. I was brought up in a couple of two Anglican churches in Oshawa, and they had very good choirs, and then came to Toronto, and I was assistant organist at St. Simon's Parish in Toronto.
Okay.
And at that time, they had a very fine men and boys choir, and it had an illustrious history and disciplined choir, and I was fortunate enough to have landed that position for 7 years, and changes from then. It's very difficult for some reason to maintain all male choir. This was probably Grace Church on the Hill was probably the last parish church in Toronto to have a men and boys choir. I think up until 2009 or 2010. And of course, there are still boys in the choir, but it's not. There were two distinct choirs: a girls' choir with women in it, and then Melva Graham had the boys and men, and that tradition carried on for a long time, and so in the last 6 or 7 years, they decided to go a different route and combine the sexes. But there have been changes, certainly in how liturgy is done, how liturgy is seen, and that's a good thing. Changes. It's important to have changes and to have, imagination about, shaping how you shape the liturgy. I think the greatest sin is not to be imaginative and to spend time, not to spend time on the liturgy. That's a very important aspect of parish life, and liturgy goes a long way to how people are shaped, and people affect liturgy, and liturgy affects people very much.
Yeah, I just autobiographically, I sort of came into Anglicanism because of the liturgy and the musicality of the prayer book, but also just the tradition of hymn singing, and I found that shaped me in ways that I didn't necessarily see at the time, but looking back, see now. I wonder if you could talk more about just how you see the role of music in the liturgy and the liturgy in shaping people.
What I'm doing here, I put a lot of thought into hymns and hymn singing. This is a very effective way of how people support their faith and build on faith, is singing. And not only do you have the emotion set up by my music, if it's a good piece of music, but you also have the emotion of text and understanding, and that is very can be very powerful. And it's amazing the amount of hymns that one can draw from different sources. And all the time, people are creating new music. We can't keep up.
Yeah.
And it's important to look at things. So some very fine Canadian composers and composing, text for hymns. I brought out this book because this is an amazing book. Peter Walker gave this to me for Christmas, and it's a book that was put together by Michael Wright, who was the rector at All Saints Peterborough for quite a number of years. And during that time, he got together with Giles Bryant, who was the director of music, and they wrote, they put together this new book called Sung Stories and Hymns for the Life of the Church. And it's amazing how one person can come up with so many. There is a little threat of a sameness, because one person has composed so many hymns, but the poetry is very sound, and so is the theology behind it. And it's an interesting new book that's out. It kind of reminds me of another clergyman, a former dean of Vancouver, Herbert O'Driscoll. He ended up going after Vancouver to Washington Cathedral on staff, and but he, together with his director of music, Patrick Wedd, put together, not as large as this book, but put together a number of hymns that are really invigorating, and they have found they have found their way to our new Common Praise hymn book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating to see a new book about hymns. I think in pop culture, hymns sort of have this stereotype of being old and kind of how people used to do things, but it seems like it's still a source of life in our tradition, and it was certainly part of the appeal for me coming into Anglicanism. Yeah.
I'm missing what I'm missing in this, although it's a different sort of feeling being in the pandemic.
Right.
But I mean, it's so different from a full throttle, congregation singing. I can't let go on the organ because I would drown out poor Sarah and even the 8-voice choir. So, but on the same token, it allows me to experiment with harmonies and the kind of accompaniment, more subtle accompaniment I give to the hymn singing during this pandemic.
Yeah,
but I
scaled
can
back a little.
Yes, that's right. But I can hardly wait to get back to hear a full congregation sing.
I look forward to that too. I know people appreciate being able to see a little closer view of what you're doing there, though, up on the organ with the camera. I think that's maybe one of the silver linings to.
Oh, it's fun. I gave a little talk on the organ during my recital at Christmas time, you know, and I'd love to do that again to give a little bit more tour of the instrument, you know, and how it operates and that, yeah.
That sounds fascinating. Chris took me back and we looked inside the organ for a minute. I just had no idea what the scale of the instrument itself, and obviously I don't know much about how it works, but I'd love to hear more, yeah. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. The hymn singing is, yeah, as I've said, is very important for shaping. It helps shape the liturgy, and there are, you know, there are good hymns and there are bad hymns. There's good and bad in everything, so I suppose that there, you know, there are hymns that are strong. It's important that a tune or a certain tune helps shape the text, well, yeah, it can motivate. I know there are some weak tunes. I wish some of the old traditional hymns had better tunes to them. You know, there are some hymns like, I'm trying to think of one. I'm sorry, I can't.
That's all right. I could give you a minute. We could come back to it.
Okay.
Yeah. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your teaching side of your vocation. I know you've been involved with the Royal Ontario College of
Royal Canadian College of Organists.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like an important part of carrying on the tradition is handing it on to people who are coming up. So I'd be curious to hear what that's like for you.
I have to say that we're in good shape, or the organ world is in good shape, with a lot of young people taking an interest and, even a passion for the organ. And, you know, this is in part due to some of the teachers at university who are not just only teaching repertoire to the organ, but also involving them in a church scenario, you know, as organ scholars, as, you know, assistant organist and so forth. There unfortunately too few places which offer a young student that kind of support, you know, of being involved with an organ scholarship, you know, having a scholarship. But in the YouTube things of seeing young people playing, it's just amazing. And you go on to hearing them in competition, for instance, competition set up and that. One of the things that sadly needs improving, though, are the, you know, organists learning how to play hymns.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, this is all the elements in organ examinations. The hymn playing is the weakest part. So in my role, I have done workshops on hymn playing and how important it is, you know, to show students that the organ doesn't need to breathe. The congregation needs to breathe.
Yeah.
And the way you play, you can teach the congregation where to breathe and take that time, you know. You hear a lot of organists, even professional organists sometimes, that they rush through a hymn, breakneck speed, and no time to breathe. But you need to have a singing spirit to play the organ. when you're accompanying. So if I can do that, convey that to a master class in that, I feel like I've done my work.
I'm sure congregations will be thankful for the extra time to breathe if
That's right.
you've done your work well. Yeah, that's fun. I had never thought about that aspect of leading in the liturgy. It makes me think of just Sarah when she's conducting the choir. That's maybe like a visual counterpart to what you're talking about audibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Very good.
Yeah, I wonder if you, just as we're closing out, how now we're almost a year into the pandemic. What are you looking forward to in the months to come, and how are you going to keep up in the meantime?
Well, I think this parish has done incredible work in inviting different people to come in, and most of these are parishioners, come in to play different instruments, incorporating different ideas as far as repertoire is concerned. Having Matthew Hiltz come in to play jazz guitar and with Sarah and excuse me, and because it's important to have different instruments involved. It evokes different emotions and can set up. I remember one of the things we did at St. Clement's is to invite instrumentalists and have, say, an oboe introduce by itself the O Come, Emmanuel. And what a haunting experience that is, just a simple solo line. And it really sets up the the singing for people to participate fully, in it. Oftentimes, the playover of a hymn says whether or not you're going to be singing it after you've played. So it's important for the organist to have the kind of playover that's going to say to the people, I want to sing.
Yeah, an invitation. Well, yeah, one of the joys for me of being at Grace has just been getting to hear people practicing, and even throughout the pandemic, hearing people on the piano, and yeah, that's been a gift to me in this time.
Well, it's been well put together, I think, and the whole team has put great effort into it. And Chris Leonard of course, has been doing yeoman's work, and I don't know how he does it with those controls that look bigger than an organ.
It looks like magic to me. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure to sit down with you, Tom, and.
I've enjoyed it, and
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Good to talk to you, Tom, and to sit down together, and look forward to another installment in the future. Take care.
We'll do it. Bye-bye.
I feel like we should shake hands.